Now we are going to start lymphatic system. In lymphatic system, first we are going to discuss lymphedema. So we are going to discuss lymphedema. This lymphedema is of two types. One is primary lymphedema and secondary lymphedema. So it is of two types, primary and secondary. Now see what's the problem. Primary lymphedema, it is because of congenital malformations. So primary lymphedema, it is because of congenital malformations, and secondary lymphedema is secondary to lymphatic obstruction or lymphatic disruption. Lymphatic obstruction means suppose there is obstruction in lymphatics because of filariasis. So this is lymphatic obstruction, and suppose I am going to perform axillary lymph node dissection or inguinal lymph node dissection. So during lymph node dissection we are going to disrupt the lymphatics. So this is lymphatic disruption. Overall, if you are talking about primary and secondary, which one is most common? Overall, the most common type of lymphedema is secondary. And what is the most common type of secondary lymphedema? It is lymphatic obstruction caused by filariasis. So all these are important. Let's discuss one by one. Primary lymphedema, it is caused by congenital malformation. It is caused by congenital malformations. We will discuss the primary lymphedema separately in detail. Lymphatic obstruction or disruption leads to secondary lymphedema. So what's the cause of this secondary lymphedema? It can be caused by lymphatic obstruction or lymphatic disruption. Obstruction or disruption. Okay, in these two, which one is more common? So in these two, lymphatic obstruction is more common. Okay, so these are the two mechanisms. So see, first we are going to discuss lymphatic obstruction. Overall, it's most commonly responsible for lymphedema. And what is the most common cause of lymphedema worldwide? It is filariasis, and it is caused by which organism? Wuchereria bancrofti. What are the other organisms which can lead to filariasis? Brugia malai and Brugia timori. Okay, so lymphatic obstruction, it leads to filariasis, and this filariasis is the most common cause of lymphedema worldwide. This is most common cause worldwide. And what's the organism responsible? It is caused by Wuchereria bancrofti. Okay, what are the other organisms responsible, also caused by Brugia malai and Brugia timori? Brugia timori. Clear? So overall, most common cause of lymphedema, filariasis. Now see what happens in lymphatic disruption. The second mechanism is lymphatic disruption. Okay, and generally the two classical examples are, for upper limb, it's the axillary lymph node dissection which we perform in patients of breast cancer when we perform the MRM, and inguinal lymph node dissection which is performed in perineal malignancies like carcinoma penis. So lymphatic disruption. So examples, there is disruption of lymphatics when we perform axillary lymph node dissection, and for perineal malignancies we perform inguinal lymph node dissection. Now see, what is the most common cause of lymphedema in USA? And the most common cause of lymphedema in USA is lymph node dissection. Which type of? Axillary lymph node dissection. So this axillary lymph node dissection is the most common cause of lymphedema. It's the most common cause of lymphedema in USA. Clear? So most common cause of secondary lymphedema in USA, and that is what? That is axillary lymph node dissection. Clear? So these are the important points. Now we are going to discuss in detail the primary lymphedema. Primary lymphedema is further divided into congenital lymphedema, lymphedema precox, and lymphedema tarda. Out of congenital lymphedema, lymphedema precox and lymphedema tarda, which one is most common? Lymphedema precox, which is responsible for more than 90% cases of primary lymphedema. Okay, so see the types. Primary lymphedema. Okay, it's further divided into three types. Congenital. First is congenital lymphedema. Second is lymphedema precox. So this is lymphedema precox. And third is lymphedema tarda. Okay, now first see the age. If it is congenital, so usually it's present at birth. So in majority of patients, what's the age? Less than 1 year. Age of patient less than 1 year. In lymphedema precox, the age 1 to 35 years. Clear? And what's the age in lymphedema tarda? It's more than 35 years. More than 35 years. Now see, congenital means usually it is present at birth. So the congenital lymphedema, it is present at birth. This lymphedema. And what happens in this? Lower limb, face, genitalia is involved, and usually it is bilateral and multiple limbs are involved. So what is involved? It can involve lower limb, face and genitalia. Clear? Usually this is bilateral and multiple limbs are involved. Multiple limbs. So it is usually bilateral, involves multiple limbs. One question which is frequently asked related to congenital lymphedema, and this question was asked minimum 5 to 6 times, that familial version of congenital lymphedema is known as Milroy's disease. This is the question. Most commonly asked question. Milroy's disease. Clear? And the question is familial version of congenital lymphedema. So this is familial version of congenital lymphedema. Clear? Now coming to lymphedema precox. We discussed that age 1 to 35 years. Overall, most common type of primary lymphedema is lymphedema precox. So overall, it is most common type, responsible for more than 90% cases, and it is more common in females. Now see, congenital lymphedema was usually bilateral, right? And lymphedema precox is, it's usually unilateral. And here, calf and foot is involved. Generally, it is going to involve calf and foot. So there is a similar question which is asked related to lymphedema precox, that familial version of lymphedema precox is known as Meeks disease. Be careful, it is Meeks disease. It is not Meeks syndrome. What is Meeks syndrome? Meeks syndrome is ovarian tumor, ascites and right-sided pleural effusion. Clear? So the similar question is asked here also. What is Meeks disease? Okay, and this is what familial version of lymphedema precox. Familial version of lymphedema precox. Clear? Lymphedema tarda is a rare condition, and generally it is seen in patients more than 35 years of age. So these are the types of lymphedema. Now see, once in JIPMER, there was one question related to clinical classification of lymphedema, and the name of this classification is Brunner's classification. So what is Brunner's clinical classification? Brunner's clinical classification of lymphedema. This was asked in JIPMER. Okay. So see, first is subclinical. Subclinical means no clinically apparent lymphedema. So as such, there is no lymphedema, but what happens? These patients have increased interstitial fluid and these patients have histological abnormality. So see, what is subclinical? So since it is subclinical, so there is no clinically apparent lymphedema. So no clinically apparent lymphedema. Okay, so if lymphedema is not there, what's the problem? These patients have just the beginning. So they have excess interstitial fluid. So these patients have excess interstitial fluid, and these patients have histological abnormality of lymphatics and lymph node. So there is histological abnormality of lymphatics and lymph node. Clear? After that, it is further divided into grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. In grade 1, there is pitting edema. In grade 2, there is non-pitting edema. And in grade 3, there is edema with irreversible skin changes. Okay, so see, what's the grade 1? In grade 1, there is pitting edema. Clear? And in grade 2, it becomes non-pitting. So in grade 2, it becomes non-pitting. Clear? And with edema, if there are irreversible skin changes, then it is grade 3. So in grade 3, there is edema with irreversible skin changes. Clear? So this is the Brunner's classification, irreversible skin changes. Okay, now see what are the complications of chronic lymphedema. So you have seen the patient is having massive edema in the limb, and because of that, what happens? Sometimes patient is having discomfort and pain. Question is asked that what are the complications of chronic lymphedema? Now see, this patient is having limb swelling, and because of that, what is the problem? These patients have discomfort and pain. So there is discomfort and pain because of swelling. Second, you can see these are the skin folds. Can you see? These are the skin folds. Clear? In these skin folds, there is increased risk of bacterial infection, fungal infection. These patients are predisposed to cellulitis, lymphangitis. And because of this cellulitis and lymphangitis, there is hyperpigmentation. So you can see hyperpigmentation, and you can see what skin thickening also. Third problem, if patient is having lymphedema for long duration, there is increased risk of malignancy. And what's the name of that malignancy? Lymphangiosarcoma. Okay, so what are the complications? What are the complications of chronic lymphedema? Chronic lymphedema. Easy to understand. Since patient is having limb swelling, because of limb swelling, there is discomfort and pain. So there is discomfort and pain because of limb swelling. Second, there is increased risk of infections. Clear? So there is increased risk of infection. Which one? There is increased risk of bacterial infection, fungal infection, generally between skin folds and crevices. Clear? And what else? These patients have increased risk of cellulitis and lymphangitis. Okay, and whenever these patients have repeated attacks of this cellulitis, lymphangitis, it leads to skin thickening and discoloration. So here you can see there is skin thickening and discoloration. And another problem, serious problem, that there is increased risk of malignancy. Okay, so in patients of chronic lymphedema, if malignancy occurs, what's the name of this malignancy? Lymphatic in origin, lymphangiosarcoma. So the name is lymphangiosarcoma, also known as angiosarcoma. So it is lymphangiosarcoma or angiosarcoma. Now see how this patient comes initially to us. What is the clinical presentation? Now first thing, what you can notice here, that there is swollen dorsum of foot, and this swollen dorsum of foot is looking like a buffalo hump. So this is known as buffalo hump. Second thing, can you see the shape of these toes? So there are, what is the shape? It is square shaped. So the shape of toes, can you see it is square shaped? Why? Because of confinement in footwear. So there is confinement in footwear and there is edema. So what happens? The shape is like this. So this is known as square toes. So two problems you can see in this picture. First is, this is buffalo hump. Clear? So what is this buffalo hump? It is the swelling in dorsum of foot. So there is swelling in dorsum of foot. Okay, it looks like buffalo. This was asked in NEET PG. And the second question, it was also asked in NEET PG. What? Square toes. So can you see? This is known as square toes. Okay, so toes appear square shaped because of confinement to the footwear. So here, toes appear square shaped. Why? Because of confinement to the footwear. Because of confinement to footwear. Clear? And there is third sign which is asked. See, this is the right limb and this is the left limb. Left limb is normal, left lower limb is normal, right limb is having lymphedema. Now you can see here that this person is going to pinch the skin from the toes. So the skin of toes can be easily pinched. But what is the problem? Here you can see the skin over dorsum of toes cannot be pinched. Why? Because there is subcutaneous fibrosis. So because of subcutaneous fibrosis, skin over dorsum of toes cannot be pinched, and the name of this sign is Stemmer's sign. So what's the name of this sign? This is Stemmer's sign. Stemmer's sign. So here, skin over dorsum of toes cannot be pinched. Skin over dorsum of toes. Here you can see. Skin over dorsum of toes cannot be pinched. Clear? And why it cannot be pinched? Because of why? Because of subcutaneous fibrosis. Subcutaneous fibrosis. So three signs you have to remember. First, buffalo hump. Second, square toes. And third, Stemmer's sign in relation to lymphedema. Now see how we make the diagnosis. So initially when the patients of lymphedema are coming to us, when there is mild swelling and there is no complicating factor present. Mild swelling, no complicating factor present. So how we make the diagnosis? Usually we make the diagnosis by history and examination. So the diagnosis is clinical. Generally investigation is not required. Okay. So how we make the diagnosis? So diagnosis is based on history and examination. Generally, investigation is not required. And in which cases history and examination is sufficient for diagnosis? When patient is having mild swelling. When patient is having mild swelling and there are no complicating factors. Clear? So in absence of complicating factors, and if there is mild swelling, history and examination is sufficient. Investigations are not required routinely. Now in which cases investigation is required? Now see, whenever there is atypical presentation, and in this case you notice there is mild swelling. So imagine if the patient is having severe lymphedema with complications. So if there is atypical presentation, there is severe lymphedema with complication and multifactorial swellings are present. In these cases, we need investigation. So what are the conditions in which investigation is required? So investigations is done in which case? If there is atypical presentation. If there is atypical presentation, one. Second, if there is severe lymphedema with complications. So severe lymphedema with complications. And the third problem, if there is multifactorial swelling. Multifactorial factorial swelling. Okay, now question, which investigation? So see, if some abnormality is there in the artery, we go for angiography. If it's in the vein, we go for venography. So if it is in the lymphatics, what is the name of investigation? We go for lymphangiography. So which investigation we perform? Here we go for lymphangiography. The investigation we do, it's the lymphangiography. Now see how we manage the lymphedema. You have seen many patients in the surgery ward. Imagine a patient in whom MRM is done, modified radical mastectomy, and after that during surgery axillary lymph node dissection is done. In post-operative period, you notice that patient is having what? Lymphedema. So what advice is given to that patient? Limb elevation, means at the time of sleep you have to put your limb on the pillow. Second, during daytime what you have to apply? The crepe bandage, means compression stockings, and we also tell the patient to do some exercise of physiotherapy. Clear? So this is the basic management. It means in majority of cases how we manage lymphedema conservatively. There is surgical treatment also, but conservative management is preferred. Why? Because surgical treatment is not very efficacious. So after surgery or surgery is having poor efficacy and there is increased risk of complications. So how we manage? Management of lymphedema. So first principle you have to understand that conservative management it's preferred over surgical treatment. Why? Because surgical treatment is having poor efficacy. So there is poor efficacy, and second problem, there is increased risk of complications. Increased risk of complications. So what is preferred? Conservative management is preferred. Okay, so what are the components we discussed? We advise the patient for limb elevation. Patient is advised to wear compression stockings. So use compression stockings. We have to advise the limb care, in which patient should be very cautious about the presence of any infection. So if there is infection, in cases of infections, what? We go for antibiotics. And simultaneously what? We advise the physiotherapy. So what kind of? There is specialized complex physical therapy. So specialized complex physical therapy. Clear? These are the components, and generally these components are preferred, means conservative management is preferred. Now see, if despite of conservative management or medical management, if patient is having severe functional impairment, there are recurrent attacks of lymphangitis and still patient is having severe pain, so in those cases we will be going for surgery. So what are the indications of surgical treatment? Despite of medical management, if patient is having severe functional impairment, if the patient is still having severe functional impairment, there are recurrent attacks of lymphangitis, so there is recurrent lymphangitis and severe pain. So if there is recurrent lymphangitis and severe pain, clear? So in these cases we go for surgery, and we have two types of surgery. One is known as reconstructive operations and second is excisional operations. So reconstructive operation, as the name suggests, what we do, we perform the reconstruction, and in excisional operations we perform the excision. See how it's done? Surgical treatments are first reconstructive and the second is excisional. Okay, it's very easy to understand. Imagine that this is a vein, okay, and this is a lymphatics. Clear? You know that in vein there is valves, and in lymphatics also there is valve. What is the direction? This is the direction of valves. So the blood flow is towards heart. and the lymph flow is also towards heart. So what, this is the direction of valves. Now imagine this patient is having lymphatic obstruction. See, here is the obstruction. So what I'm going to do in this case, if the proximal part of lymphatics is patent, I'm going to divide the lymphatics. Clear? And after dividing the lymphatics, I'm going to suture this lymphatics to the vein. Ultimately, you know, the whole lymph of the body goes into left brachiocephalic vein and via that superior vena cava and via that right atrium. So ultimately it goes into systemic circulation. So I'm going to divide the lymphatics and going to suture it with the vein. So what kind of anastomosis? This is lymphovenous anastomosis. And what kind of surgery? This is reconstructive operation. And what is excisional operation? Now see this diagram. You can see this is the skin and this is the muscle. Clear? So skin and muscle. In between skin and muscle, there is fat, there is unhealthy tissue, there is fibrous tissue, excessive amount of fluid. So what we are going to do, whatever the unhealthy tissue, fluid, fat, fibrous tissue is present between the skin and muscle, that is excised circumferentially. So we are going to excise that unhealthy tissue circumferentially, and after doing that excision, what we do, we go for split thickness skin grafting. So we go for split thickness skin grafting. So in this surgery, you excise the unhealthy tissue, fibrous tissue, subcutaneous fat. So this is excisional operation. What's the problem of this surgery? In this case, whenever we are performing this split thickness skin grafting, sometimes the vascularity of graft is gone and there is necrosis. So excisional operations in comparison to reconstructive operations have higher morbidity and increased risk of complications. So there are named surgeries which are asked. See the named surgeries. So first, reconstructive operations, and the second is excisional. So reconstructive and the second is excisional. Just now we discussed lymphovenous anastomosis, and that lymphovenous anastomosis is known as Nebulowitz operation. You have to remember the name. It was asked once. It is known as Nebulowitz operation. So what's done in Nebulowitz operation? Here we perform lymphovenous anastomosis. Clear? So it's the lymphovenous anastomosis. Nebulowitz operation. The second is Gillies, in which we are using skin bridge for reconstruction. So it is Gillies. And here we are using skin bridge. Skin bridge is used for reconstruction. And third is Kinmonth. In Kinmonth we use ileal mucosa. So third, it's the Kinmonth. And in Kinmonth we use ileal mucosa. Clear? For reconstruction. Now see the names of excisional operations. First, cis trunk procedure. We discussed there is cis trunk operation, in which case in thyroglossal cyst, but this is cis trunk procedure. So cis trunk procedure. Okay, what are the other names? There is Condoleance's or Homan's procedure. Condoleance's or Homan's procedure. Again, this is a procedure. There is Charles procedure and Thompson procedure. Okay, so Charles and Thompson. Clear? You have to remember these names because these names are frequently asked. So excisional operation, cis trunk procedure, Condoleance's or Homan's, Charles and Thompson. We discussed hemangioma many times, and hemangioma is in relation to blood vessels. So lymphatic analog of hemangioma of blood vessels is known as lymphangioma. Clear? What is lymphangioma? It's the lymphatic analog of hemangioma of blood vessels. We discussed hemangioma are of two types. One is capillary and one is cavernous. Similarly, lymphangioma is also of two types. Capillary lymphangioma cavernous lymphangioma. Okay, so we are going to discuss in detail the lymphangioma. Okay, so what is this lymphangioma? It is the lymphatic analog of hemangioma. Clear? So it is lymphatic analog of hemangioma of blood vessels. So what's the problem in lymphangioma? There is isolated and sequestered segments of lymphatic system. Isolated and sequestered segments. But what is the problem? These isolated and sequestered segments have the capability to produce lymph. So since these sequestered segments of lymphatic system keeps on producing the lymph, that's why you will notice that lymphangioma keeps increasing in the size. So it's the cystic swelling whose size starts increasing. The classical example you have seen, the patient who is having cystic hygroma. So what's the problem here? In this case, there are isolated and sequestered segments. There are isolated and sequestered segments of lymphatic system, and these keeps on producing lymph. So they have retained the ability to produce lymph. So they retain ability to produce lymph. So what's the problem? There is lymph production and this lymph start collecting in the cystic tumor. So what happens? The size of cystic tumor keeps on increasing. It keeps on increasing. Simple. Now see what are the types we discussed: capillary and cavernous lymphangioma. Capillary. So generally it is going to involve the subcutaneous region of head and neck and axilla. Subcutaneous region of head and neck and axilla. And the cavernous lymphangioma is going to involve the neck and axilla. Classical example of cavernous lymphangioma is what? Cystic hygroma. So you know it is present in the posterior triangle of neck. So what are the types of lymphangioma? First, capillary lymphangioma, and the second, cavernous. Okay, capillary lymphangioma is going to involve subcutaneous region of head and neck and axilla. Clear? And the cavernous hemangioma, it is going to involve neck and axilla. Clear? And what's the classical example? Is the cystic hygroma. Cystic hygroma, and you know cystic hygroma is most commonly seen in the neck. Which triangle? It's going to involve the posterior triangle of neck. So to remember lymphangioma, just imagine the cystic hygroma. Imagine cystic hygroma. So you see most of the patients of cystic hygroma, they have swelling in the neck at the time of birth. And if patient is not having the swelling, generally you will notice that swelling appears by the 1 year of age. So by end of 1 year, most of the patients have swelling. Clear? And this is benign or malignant. So it is benign. So see the clinical features of lymphangioma. So usually the swelling is present at birth. Swelling is present at birth. What kind of swelling? It's benign. And in more than 90% cases it is detected by end of 1 year. By end of 1 year, in more than 90% cases it is detected. And how we are going to treat lymphangioma? We go for excision. So what's the treatment? And the treatment is excision. Okay. Now so we discussed angiosarcoma. So if there is malignancy in lymphatics, it is also known as angiosarcoma, or we can call it as lymphangiosarcoma. So angiosarcoma or lymphangiosarcoma. So see, angiosarcoma. So this malignancy in relation to lymphatics, it is also known as lymphangiosarcoma. Lymphangiosarcoma. So generally it is a complication of long-standing chronic lymphedema, long-standing or chronic lymphedema. And after how many years it is seen? On an average 10 to 11 years. After 10 to 11 years, we discussed one classical example. What? Stewart-Treves syndrome. We discussed in breast cancer that after modified radical mastectomy, if a patient is having locally advanced breast cancer, we give neoadjuvant chemotherapy, we give MRM, perform MRM, and after that we give radiotherapy. So because you perform MRM and lymph node dissection, there is lymphedema, you give radiotherapy. So on an average, after 10.5 years of radiotherapy, patients started developing severe pain in the affected limb, and there is worsening of lymphedema. Simultaneously, there is appearance of nodules with hemorrhage and ulceration. So this is angiosarcoma, and in patients of breast cancer, it is known as Stewart-Treves syndrome. Okay, so generally angiosarcoma is a complication of long-standing lymphedema. Complication of long-standing lymphedema. Clear? How to remember this angiosarcoma? You have to remember this typical situation in breast cancer patients, and that is known as Stewart-Treves syndrome. Now see what are the sequence of events here. Here, what happens? MRM is done. Patient receives radiotherapy. After 10.5 years, there is severe pain over the affected limb. Clear? There is worsening of lymphedema. Worsening of lymphedema. And there is presence of subcutaneous nodules with hemorrhage and ulceration. See how it looks like? So here you can see this is a patient who is having Stewart-Treves syndrome, means angiosarcoma after 10.5 years of radiotherapy. So there is severe pain, worsening of lymphedema. Simultaneously, you can notice what? These are the nodules. So these patients have subcutaneous nodules with hemorrhage and ulceration. With hemorrhage and ulceration. So how we are going to manage this patient? First, we are going to downstage the tumor. So we go for neoadjuvant chemoradiation, followed by surgical excision. And what kind of surgery is performed? We have to perform the radical amputation. Despite of radical amputation, what happens? Prognosis is very poor. So how we manage these patients? Management. We go for downstaging. So neoadjuvant chemoradiation, followed by surgical excision. And what kind of surgical excision is done? Generally, we go for radical amputation. So we go for radical amputation. And despite of this radical amputation, this malignancy is having poor prognosis. So despite of radical amputation, it is associated with poor prognosis. Clear? So this is all about lymphatic system.